How many handicapping groups can say they were around before Twitter, MySpace, AOL, Sunday morning cable infomercials, beepers, and 1-800 numbers? Founded in 1957, The Gold Sheet is the country's longest-running sports betting newsletter and has served bettors for over 6 decades. So between 1957 and now, if you have not checked out The Gold Sheet, here's your chance for only $1 per day. Head to goldsheet.com and just go to Buy Now or click the special box on the main page to get both the NBA Gold Sheet and College Basketball Gold Sheet newsletter for only $7. For just $1 per day, you will receive projected scores, spread and totals, power ratings and strength of schedule, teams straight up, against the spread, and over-under records and their season average line for both sides and total. Plus, tons more handicapping information to help you bet with confidence and, of course, tons of picks. This offer is for a limited time only, so act fast and head to goldsheet.com and try it out for 7 days for only $7. You'll be glad you did.
Hey guys, welcome in a very happy, Thursday now. Here we are, November the 17th, and we got some college basketball on our minds here as the slate's already underway here with a few games. We got a couple of tournaments around the country. We got a couple of late games we're going to break down for you here today on this Thursday, and we're going to do it with three of the finest that you will find at wagertalk.com as straight from the Thomas and Mack Arena, I believe, there, screwing us all the other night with UNLV. Way to go. Adam Trigger in the house, and I'm sure he's on the road in a new undisclosed location. We'll get that in a minute. Drew Martin back in the chair here, ready to roll. And there he is, man. My goodness. Welcome in as we get ready. And I want to ask you here, Jimmy Adams, you got it quite rolling on here lately, don't you, my man? You are cashing tickets. Your clients could not be happier. Tell us what you got going on here now at wagertalk.com.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Pretty perfect start to the college basketball campaign. Has actually been perfect. We're 7-0 so far, seeing things well. It's all about preparation coming into the season, and now the pressure's on to keep that going. So we have a play up for tonight, and hopefully we'll make it 8-0.
Oh, I love it. That's what I'm talking about. Undefeated, guys. That's a hell of a way to roll to start the season there, Jimmy. Make sure you guys follow him right now over at wagertalk.com. Check out that page. And Drew Martin, I know you are locked and loaded as well here, my friend, whether it be college football, NFL, college hoops. Man, what do you got up at Wager Talk?
Absolutely, Joe. On a 9-1, 90% football heater. I'm feeling it. Maybe not as perfect as Jimmy, but on the gridiron, going pretty well. And got a 5%er up for tonight, Thursday night football. So go check it out. And doing some research here for college basketball and about to go in heavy in the next week, Joe. So always happy to be on breaking down these games with you, my friend.
Let's do it here, guys. That is 9-1 in football. We got 7-0 in college hoops. And Trig, you are just a traveling man, dude. You're like a gypsy living out of a damn suitcase here, man. Checking all of these teams out up close and personal. So talk to us, man. Where are you now, and what do you got locked and loaded over at Wager Talk?
I'm back home. I got home this morning. I went to BYU Missouri State last night, which was a great game. I wouldn't say it was a great game from the respect that either of those teams. So if you want just some takeaways, I would fade both of those teams. I don't think either are very good, but it was a good game in the respect that it came down to the final play. BYU scores at the buzzer to win. Again, wasn't overly impressed with what I saw out of either. The night before, I was at UNLV Dayton in Nevada. Ski Profit came with me, a couple other guys, and I wouldn't put too much stock into that loss for Dayton. They were missing probably their best player, and one of their other top players was out with, an injury in the first half. He never came back. But UNLV's kind of scrappy. I could see them being maybe if if they can get they couldn't get their offense going in the first half. If they aren't able to do that, that's going to be an issue for that team. But overall, I thought the Rebels were decent. But Joe, I know you've cashed tickets with this team. The most impressive team of the 6 that I've seen in person so far this year was Youngstown State.
Boom.
Watch out for the Penguins. They're probably going to win the Horizon League, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Penguins were part of March Madness this year.
I love it. See, teams galore. Not like seeing them up close and personal. That's how Trig rolls. Although he wasn't very impressed with you. With BYU last night, doesn't sound like so. Let's see if
no point guard, no ball handler. Like that's gonna be a huge no ball handler and no shooters like they've had in years past. Going to be a big issue in my opinion, for BYU.
Coach Pope is going to have his hands full there for sure. Let's check it out here, guys. Tonight we got a little West Coast action. How about Utah State taking on San Diego? The Toros, Drew. San Diego now, I think, about 2 years? In big-time basketball now for them as they upgraded the program. And, both 3-0, I believe, here at this point. 147.5. They are catching points here, the Toros. What do you think tonight?
Sure, Joe. Yeah, I guess, 3 years in the Big West. And guys out there, if you're doing your own handicapping, don't be confused. This is not the UC San Diego Tritons, nor the San Diego State Aztecs. So don't waste 10 minutes of your time, 20 minutes of your time researching for this game like I did before the show. It is the San Diego Toros, like you correctly stated there, Joe. Steve Lavin's club, 3-0. However, they did not cover against New Jersey Institute of Technology, the 16.5. So always like to kind of combine how are they doing against the spread, where are they being priced. And actually, look at this Utah State team, the Aggies, 75% from the free throw line. They are 3-0 straight up and against the spread, Joe. Their cover margin by 35 points combined. So in terms of how the market is pricing these teams, they are not pricing Utah State correctly, at least through the first 3 games. So all of that pointing towards, I think Utah State is underpriced. Now, there is a little bit of kind of pump the brakes. This is their first away game, and they do have a very good home field advantage there up in altitude in Logan, Utah. So that might be something to consider, something why it didn't make my client card. But, Joe, just the mispricing on Utah State. I know it's a short sample size, but sometimes in the beginning of the college football season or college basketball season, guys, I've had success with that in the past, Joe. Just mispriced out the gate, 35 points against the spread. That's what has me circling Utah State here.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they've been putting up points in bunches here, Trig. But tell me, I see 2-1 in the over, and the only game they didn't hit the over, I think, was that first one against Utah Valley, or Utah Tech. It wasn't because they didn't contribute. This team can score and score in bunches. What do you think we get here tonight?
All right, well, first, I just want to make sure that we're not confused here. This is the San Diego Toreros or Toros, but they're not the team that's only been in D1 for 2 years. They've been in D1 forever. They went to the NCAA tournament in 2008. I forgot who they beat, but I think they won a game in that tournament back in 2008. They were like a 12 seed. I want to say they pulled an upset. They're in the West Coast Conference, and their head coach, first-year coach Steve Lavin, certainly not a first-year coach. He's back into coaching for the first year in a while, and that I don't love that. I mean, he's a big name. He's gonna draw some big. It looks like he's already grabbed a couple big-name players. That he got Jaden Dallaire from Stanford, Eric Williams from Oregon. So he's getting some players down there, but I don't know if I love. There's another team that's I think Fran Dumpy came back for LaSalle after being off for a couple of years, and I don't know if that just like translates to instant success. Now, Steve Lavin obviously is a excellent college basketball coach. If you look at his resume, I think he could potentially win there if he stays and builds the program. But I'd be concerned a little bit with a team like that against a team like Utah State, who absolutely nailed it in the transfer portal, getting Taylor Funk. If you're talking about like an addition, these transfer portal guys can be hit or miss. I think Utah State hit a home run with Funk from St. Joe's, who was absolutely a game changer at St. Joe's. Whatever he wasn't on the floor at St. Joe's, that team was atrocious last couple of years. Now he's at Utah State. He put up 23 against Santa Clara in a blowout win. I agree with Drew. I don't like him as much on the road, and I'm not a big fan of laying this many in a true road game. But I think there's listen, Utah State was definitely ahead of schedule last year, in my opinion. They were expected to take a step back, and they just kind of reloaded, and now they really reloaded with funk. So I think Utah State's going to win this game. Number's a little high, but I guess I'd still lean with that number. I would lean Utah State and hope they can get it done by margin.
All right, looking to get it. Thinks he's going to get done by margin. Jimmy, how do you label these two teams here? Are you think it's a 4-0 start here for Utah State?
I do, yeah. Don't be fooled by both teams having 3-0 records. Utah State's far and away, better than San Diego from a talent perspective. The Aggies are a fundamentally sound team. They play solid defense. They space the floor really well. They like to get out and run. They knock down the three ball. So they're kind of a team that I like to back year after year. They seem to come in with the same strategy, and it works very well for them. Scoring certainly hasn't been a problem thus far. The Aggies just hung 96 on Santa Clara in a 22-point win. Something worth noting is they also have older players due to being a predominantly Mormon school. And so the guys tend to be a couple years older. How much of an impact that has, you can decide, but gives them a little bit of an advantage. San Diego's been beating up on some weak competition, and they're about to take a big step up in class for them, and I don't think they're ready. San Diego had a record of 1-8 when they were an underdog of plus 188 or more last season. Their home court advantage isn't going to mean that much, and the Aggies will probably win this game by double digits. Give me Utah State.
Another
Joe.
Utah State backer. Yes, Trick.
Joe, I gotta, because Will just texted me on the side. I gotta jump in quick. This is so embarrassing that I didn't remember this off the top of my head. San Diego was part of. So in 2008, at the Tampa venue, all four double-digit seeds, 12-13, 12-13, 1, all at the same venue, and one of those teams was Siena beating Vanderbilt. And I knew the fact that I couldn't just rattle that off. So San Diego beat UConn that year. Siena beat Vandy, and there was two other 12 seeds to beat a 5 or a 4. It's like a historic day. I don't think it's happened since. So that's the last time San Diego went to the tournament, and the last time they won a game in the tournament, all the way back on that day when 4 double-digit seeds all won in the same building on the same day. Now we can move on now. I had to get that out.
Yes. By the way, it was my bad. It was the Tritons that switched over from D2. Part of the UC system there, not the Toreros. Should have remembered Tritons. But the Toreros, nobody likes them here, even though we know their school history now. It's Utah State across the board there. So we'll move on to game number 2, and we'll check out Wichita State and the Richmond Spiders laying 4.5 with that total of 132, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Tip on this one, Jimmy Adams. Who are you leaning towards here in this one? The Shockers?
Oh, man, Joe, this was a really tough handicap for me because I just don't know what we're going to expect out of Wichita State. The Shockers opened the season with a win against an inferior opponent. Then they lose to Alcorn State, 66-57, at 16-point favorites. Just 16.7% from 3, 64.3% from the line. They were out-rebounded. They had more turnovers. It was just a terrible performance from Wichita State. And, this early into the season, it has me hesitant to go ahead and just jump in and back them here. Richmond's Tyler Burton should have a good game like he usually does, but does he have enough scoring talent around him to warrant laying this much chalk? I mean, both teams lost the majority of their scorers from last season, and I'm really just going to need to see more out of both these teams before making a wager for myself or the clients. I'll slightly lean towards Richmond, but it's definitely not going to be a play for me. It's going to be a pass.
Oh, it's a tough one here. What do you think, Drew? How you leaning in this one?
It is a tough one. I mean, both teams coming off of a loss, and really an unexpected loss. If you kind of go by what the odds makers, what a lot of the pundits out there are kind of ranking these teams at. Richmond losing in overtime to Charleston. That's the Cougars, who, by the way, something I also look at, Joe, is the Cougars number 9 in tempo in the country in the short sample size so far year to date. And Wichita State is actually going to look to slow it down. So if you're looking to kind of get a little bit of a heads up tempo-wise, that might give you something on the total here. Plus the fact the Shockers here in Wichita State, Joe, they're off of their loss to Alcorn State, who is not ranked very highly. So that's kind of alarming if you're looking to bet on Wichita State here. They might not be very good, the same Wichita State in terms of years past. Alcorn State, a bottom 100 team. If you go by KenPom, they only scored 57 points in that game. Just something to look out for. And really breaking down both of these two teams offensively and bringing in that metric of Wichita State's a lot slower than the last opponent Richmond faced in Charleston at 132.5 as this total here, Joe. I would actually look to go under Wichita State, Richmond, 132.5.
Yeah, Alcorn State, Central Arkansas, both unders for this Wichita State team here, Trig. Maybe not as up-tempo as, like Drew said, like we saw against Charleston, but what do you think in this one? How are you looking at it?
So, Joe, I typically like to I'll typically come back and back a team after they have a result, like Wichita State did. Listen, these things happen early in the season, especially now when you've got all sorts of new players on each team. Just look at Colorado the other day. They lost to Grambling, and then they went out and beat Tennessee. Like, this is just college basketball now. You've got so many moving parts, and Wichita State specifically is all new. It's a brand new team. All new faces on that roster. One of the guys they bring in is a Siena transfer, Colby Rogers. Guy was a lights-out shooter last year. One of the best shooters in the MAC conference. Was disappointed that he didn't decide to come back to Siena. He's now at Wichita State, and I think he could be a nice fit there. Listen, Jimmy referenced Burton. He's basically the only one back from Richmond's tournament team last year. They lost pretty much everyone else. Grant Golden, Gilliard, Nick Sherrod, all the guys that kind of made that sort of that class that ended up finally getting to the tournament last year with Richmond. But Burton, not only is he the best player on Richmond, he might be the best player in the A-10 conference this year. So, and Richmond, they didn't, just because they lost so many guys, they still have a lot of depth. So Richmond by no means is a fade for me, but I do think they might be a little bit overvalued here. I mean, laying 4.5, 5. I don't think Wichita State's incapable by any means. I think they just have, again, it's a newer team, so we could see them go either way. But coming off of a loss, the way they lost to Alcorn State, I do think they're going to be a little bit more competitive here. It should be a wake-up call at the very least. Richmond, just a grueling game. I mean, they really had to exert a lot of effort to come back against Charleston. They were down big, come all the way back, lose an OT. If they can figure out a way to stop Burton or at least limit him, Wichita State will be in this game. So I'm going to take the points here with Wichita State. I think the Shockers, I think they'll be in this game. I don't see why they couldn't win it, and I think they can at least hang around enough to cover the number against that spread.
All right, liking it. Shockers, it is, and you want to talk about a tale of two different games. Try watching the tempo in that one and then watch the tempo in this one as Nebraska and St. John's getting ready to do battle here. All right, let's just call the over and just move on from this game. 159.5 in the total here, 9.5 for the Johnnies. St. John's comes in, I believe, number 6 as far as the fastest tempo teams in college basketball. Nebraska not that far behind, number 18. And if it's tempo and three-pointers you like, Drew, this one's going to be a whole. Don't blink. There might be 20 points scored before you realize what just happened here. How are you looking at this game with these two?
Sure, yeah, Joe. If the Johnnies get what they want tempo-wise, which they should, I mean, they're the more talented team, at least by the numbers, and they're at home. So in terms of controlling tempo, going up pace, top 10 team in the country, like you correctly stated. But at over 160, you kind of need a little bit of a clean ride to get there early in the season. I will say this, Joe, looking at the past opponents of both of these two teams, they combined played 5 teams. All 5 teams ranked 300 or lower by Ken Palm. So it's kind of hard to get a read on how good these teams are side-wise. I guess you could say, St. John's going up tempo, shooting nearly 80% from the free throw line. I usually have that as circled as, hey, I'm willing to lay points just because they can knock down their free throws and you're going to get a lot of possessions. Nebraska also 0-2 against the spread. So that's what points me towards the Johnnies here. If you need something in this one, out of all 3 games we talked about, this is the one I like the least, Joe. But, personal kind of wagering here. I'm going to go with all 3, bet all 3 of these games, and that puts me on the Johnnies, minus 9.5 if you can find it, widely available, minus 10.
Yeah, it's I think they, what are they, about 13 seconds of possession, and it's usually a 3 for St. John's there, Jimmy. I think it only takes Nebraska about 17, 18 seconds, and they're chucking up threes too. So either they're going to score 1,000,000 points or they're going to score no points here. How do you look at this matchup here tonight?
Yeah, just like you said right off the top, I'm going to be on the over in this game, Joe. Pretty big line here for a St. John's team that's given up a lot of points early on to some not so great competition. Red Storm giving up 71.3 points per game doesn't sound like a ton, but then when you look at who they've played, you may think the Cornhuskers can stay within this number, but you are taking a pretty big risk if you think that. Nebraska sitting at 2-0 after their 14-point win over Omaha in a game they pretty much dominated from start to finish. Cornhuskers bring some decent guard play with them. They shot 50% in the win versus Omaha. St. John's obviously the better team at both ends of the floor. They've been absolutely lighting up the scoreboard, averaging 90.3 points per game. We talked about the competition of St. John's that they've played, but, they are giving up some open threes, and Nebraska should be able to score enough to help push this one up and over the total, I believe. The over's 4-0 in the Red Storm's last 4 home games dating back to last season, and they're going to get the pace they want. This one's going to go up and over.
Yeah, looking to go up and over this one. I forgot. I watched them the other night, Trigg, St. John's, and Corbello came over from Illinois, and I didn't realize that. And he's between him and Posh, and they got some guys that can score. That front court is pretty impressive. Do they just manhandle Nebraska here?
I mean, St. John's is going to be such an all-or-nothing team with some of these guys they have. Like, because Corbello is really, he's a very talented player, but at the same time, like, he'll come out and turn it over 8 times in a half. Like, so you're gonna have some of those games where, like, if St. John's is getting what they want, they'll win this game by 25. I mean, but there's still some inconsistency where it makes me nervous laying like 10 points with them. With that being said, I have Nebraska as the worst team without a doubt in a Big Ten conference that I don't think is that as good as some of the other power conferences this year. So that's it. I don't know that Nebraska has the toughness required to have success against a team like St. John's that plays the way that they play. So if St. John's doesn't beat themselves here, I'm kind of with Drew. I think they'll cover this without much issue. That's always a concern though, because they will beat themselves at some point. But Nebraska's still going to need to do something, and I just don't see a ton of talent on that roster. Hoiberg hasn't really gotten that team together. He's been I think it's his 4th year now. They haven't really taken a step forward at all. I don't think they do it here. I mean, if St. John's is getting what they want in this game, they'll win it by double digits, and it's at Carnesecca. I always like that as opposed to them playing in the Garden. That on-campus venue there. So I'll roll with Drew here. I'll lay the 9.5. I think they win it by double digits.
Yeah, looking for that first 4-0 start since Chris Mullen was the head coach. Wow, in his final year back in 2018. So the Johnnies looking to handle business time against Nebraska. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time tip-off on that one. And, of course, now it is time to go around the horn here. These guys, it's a nice card here tonight, so plenty of opportunities for these guys to lean towards one game or the other. Jimmy Adams, why don't you go ahead and kick us off here. Tell us which game on the card here tonight are you leaning towards?
Yeah, it's going to be the first game we talked about. This game just missed my card. I kind of missed the line movement, but I like Utah State minus the points tonight. I think they're a much better team than San Diego. I love their style of play, fundamentally sound, pretty good defense, get out and run, shoot threes. Someone's always moving on the team, not a lot of stagnant offense. Just hung 96 points on Santa Clara. San Diego beaten up on weak competition, just not a very talented team. Yeah, for all the reasons, if you want the full analysis, you can rewind in the show, but Utah State should win this game by double digits. That's the way I'm going tonight, Joe.
All right, liking Utah State to get it done. How about it, Drew? Which way you leaning here on this card tonight?
We're lining up on the Aggies. Utah State, 75% from the free throw line, 3-0 straight up and against the spread. More importantly, guys, by a combined 35 points against the spread points, that is, where they're being priced. They're outdoing it in their 3 games by the 35 points. Up against San Diego, the Toreros, potato, not really sure. They didn't cover last time against New Jersey Institute of Technology. And I think Utah State wins by a touchdown or more with that free throw percentage, Joe. So give me Utah State.
Oh, man, it's double banger for Utah State. Trig, you give me Utah State, I'm cutting you off. So go ahead. Where are you going here tonight, Trig? What are you leaning towards?
Best bet for the show is going to be Wichita State plus the points. Think it's 4.5. Again, as I said earlier, I'm just going to bank on Wichita State's talent being good enough here. I don't put a ton of stock into the Alcorn State result because I think there's just a lot of these in college basketball now, especially when you have a brand new roster, which is basically what Wichita State has. But they have a brand new roster of guys that I think can play. I referenced Colby Rogers from Siena College earlier, transfers to Wichita State. He was one of the best. I think he had the highest shooting percentage in the MAC, at least for most of the year last year. He's a lights-out shooter and should be a nice addition to that offense. They have a junior college transfer, Jaquan Walton, that was a highly touted recruit out of high school, didn't pan out, went to a junior college now. He's on the team. So, there really is there's guys that have, pedigrees that they have a lot of talent. And if they can figure out how to make that gel, Wichita State could exceed expectations this year. Because remember, they took a big step back last year. I believe they finished 6-9 in conference play. They were not a great team in the American last year. So here, Richmond comes off of a really tough overtime loss where they put a lot into a comeback that just fell short. I think this number's a little high. 4.5, I think, is going to play here. I wouldn't be surprised if Wichita State won this game. So Wichita State Shockers plus 4.5 is going to be my best bet for the show.
All right, going there. We got 3 best bets and our friends from the Gold Sheet. They, too, have a best bet they're looking at tonight, and that's going to be Murray State. Their team total under 62.5 as they are taking on Texas A&M. And this is a great write-up, guys. If you haven't had a chance to visit thegoldsheet.com, do yourself a favor. Some great handicapping tools there. And some really great information on a day-in, day-out basis throughout the college basketball season. Go ahead, visit goldsheet.com and read the rest of the write-ups as well. But Murray State team total under 62.5. All right, we're going to come back. We hopped on Detroit yesterday as a dog. Still didn't understand that line, but they handled business. I like a small favorite here tonight, too. I like Towson, guys, against North Carolina Greensboro. 4 returning starters, 4 seniors, returning coach. This team can flat-out shoot. They can flat-out play. I think the number's a little short here, so I'll lay it with Towson 1.5 against Greensboro. And to recap, once again, we are going Utah State there with Drew up at the top. And, boy, Jimmy Adams, They are in lockstep with this. Utah State -6.5, handling business tonight against San Diego. Trig likes Wichita State in a nice bounce back spot here, +4.5. I'm laying it with Towson 1.5, while the Gold Sheet says under the 62.5 team total with Murray State against A&M. And you can visit all three of these guys right now. You heard Drew tell you he's on a 9-1 football run, and he's got a 5% best bet locked and loaded, ready to go. You can visit his page at wagertalk.com. Jimmy Adams, a 7-0 run to start the college basketball season. Damn, doesn't get any better than that, guys. His plays are locked and loaded right now at Wager Talk. And, of course, Trig is rolling across, whether it be college football, NFL, college hoops, guys. He is visiting these campuses and these schools, seeing these teams up close and personal. Visit his page as well at wagertalk.com. Come back and join us again tomorrow. We'll have a whole bunch of other games heading into the weekend. We'll preview for you. Until then, on behalf of Trig, Drew, and Jimmy, we appreciate the time, guys. Best of luck with all your plays here tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good luck.
How many handicapping groups can say they were around before Twitter, MySpace, AOL, Sunday morning cable infomercials, beepers, and 1-800 numbers? Founded in 1957, the Gold Sheet is the country's longest-running sports betting newsletter and has served bettors for over 6 decades. So between 1957 and now, if you have not checked out the Gold Sheet, here's your chance for only $1 per day. Head to goldsheet.com and just go to Buy Now or click the special box on the main page to get both the NBA Gold Sheet and College Basketball Gold Sheet newsletter for only $7. For just $1 per day, you will receive projected scores, spread and totals, power ratings and strength of schedule, teams straight up, against the spread, and over-under records and their season average line for both sides and total. Plus, tons more handicapper information to help you bet with confidence, and of course, tons of picks. This offer is for a limited time only, so act fast and head to goldsheet.com and try it out for 7 days for only $7. You'll be glad you did.